Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. It's markets in the morning. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Monday, July 24th, 2023. Markets in the Morning, where we take a look at the price action of the cryptocurrency market, the stock market, gold, metals, the dollar, any type of news that is going on out there in the world as we get ready to start our day. Considering it is Monday, it'll be ready to start our week. As we can see, we're starting off our week with, there's not only news, but of course we have price actions. Probably this is the first thing I always look at when I wake up in the morning. It's like, okay, here we go. Let's see what we're starting with. And boom, we've got a red day to start the week out. We've got news going on there with Twitter being rebranded to X.com. There's new coins being launched. Lots of price action. So we'll dive into it. XRP back to the bottom of its range. We'll dive into that today too. We'll also reference back and talk about a video that I put out July 11th. So that was 13 days ago. It was titled, "It's the Bull Run Setup on the Altcoin Market." We'll refresh on something we talked about in there, especially pertaining to Ethereum Classic, that I pointed out at what phase we were at. And then now reaching this with this little, was this a long liquidation that happened in here? We'll talk about it. Otherwise, let's dive on in. Bitcoin finally leaves its range that it's been in for over 30 days. Takes a little bit of a plunge down to the downside here. Now sitting at 29,200, being stuck for, let's get it, I think it's 30, I'm going to guess 32. 32 days. Today's the 33rd day. We finally leave the range, fortunately, to the downside. I'm hoping for a break to the upside happening in there. But we'll talk about this here in a second. Dogecoin is the one coin that is in the green today, probably on a lot of optimism of changes happening over there on Twitter.com, which is now being rebranded to X.com. We'll see how all that goes. I'm not sure how all that rebranding is going to work out there. But I've seen people posting that there's some issues with the letter X. In particular, if you're posting, I'm going to be posting some X content, or I'm going to be posting an X video. It seems to attract a different audience than you would think that you're going to get when you say I'm posting an X video. But we'll see how all that works and what the whole plan is for X.com, formerly Twitter. So if you go to X.com, it does forward to Twitter now. But that's kind of the big thing that's happening over there. Of course, lots of speculation running around there on Twitter or X.com see, what do we call it now? I mean, like, Twitter was so easy. Do we actually say X.com every time now, or do we just say X? I don't know. But lots of speculation running around over there that there will be incorporations of crypto over there into X. I haven't seen much about it, but I do see tweets going around from bigger accounts on it over there. As for Bitcoin's price action this morning, the move down that we've seen so far, still just, do we have to pull one of these? We've been talking about this for the last month as we've sat there in this range, continuing to stab higher and higher, now stabbing lower. Is it a broadening triangle? Is there a broadening wedge? You can see still within trend, but if you're gonna guess on support levels, like we've talked about, 28.5 seems pretty reasonable. Not too clear for me outside of saying, hey, at least in this exact range that we're in right now, where we're sitting, would say, hey, you got a broadening wedge happening in here, and that when we talked about the video that I made on July 11th called "It's the Bull Run Setup on the Altcoin Market," talking about Wyckoffs. This, of course, is pre-breakout. July 11th, we had summary judgment on July 13th there for XRP. We saw the whole market move up in there. The thing that we really focused on throughout that whole video was talking about XRP being in the last point of support phase of Wyckoff accumulation, and that when we look through the remainder of the market, we actually see that we had spring phase everywhere, and that what we experienced back there with the SEC and all that stuff back in June feels like forever ago. That was a month ago. that was our spring phase that happened throughout the market. And that in these final little phases, if we can bounce back up to pre-capitulation, pre-spring, that we have standard little accumulations that happen in here. And on July 11th saying, hey, it seems like if we're in this, we probably still got a little ways to go, but we're in the early phases of that, or in the late phases of it. As you could see, this little move here would have gotten that for us. So hopefully there's a surprise coming in the market pretty soon. But structurally, this is kind of the thing that I was looking for. When it comes to XRP, at the same time, we do get down to the bottom of the range. As I've talked about, this has been the dumb money zone in the middle, no action zone. For me, I did take a stab. So I've had some cash prepared to go for 58 cents should we get the plunge down there. Those funds are still prepared for those. However, those funds to get used to buy XRP today. And it's really what we've talked about last week is that get back to the support zone. I'll take a stab at it. Should we break the zone, it will trigger a stop loss for me on those additional funds. My long-term bag is completely untouched. This is literally 1% of what my XRP bags are. However, if we do bounce our way up, I did at least find a way to get those funds into XRP that I intended to. Should we take out the bottom of this, it will still be held and saved down to 58 cents. But with this being a 29% range that we are in here, 29% down, 29% up. This was really the best risk management opportunity for me to take. I got in at 68.8 cents this morning. It has a 3.5% risk should we go take out the lows. As for this particular range, we talk about different types of structures. You have things that are like a crash, a retrace, a reaccumulation, and then it goes to a breakout. What other things do we have? We have crashing structures, right? And what are typical signatures of crashing structures? Hey, we go down here, trigger my stop loss, and then we bounce back up. But the mere act of taking out this low right in here sends a pretty big warning sign for things to roll back over again, once again, like this. So we'll be watching this pretty closely here this week now to see if we do find some supports in here to start working our way back up, or if we do go trigger out and take out the low before any type of meaningful bounce does come in. If we take out the low in there, that's going to be a pretty decent sign to me that we are going to go back and back test the breakout range, which is the thing we've talked about since it's happened. Will we have to go back to it? It's no question in here at this point that just structurally we're not the same in this particular range when it comes to 2017. And we brought that up last week, and I brought that up this weekend when I did a Markets in the Morning, and I can't remember, or not Markets in the Morning, a member stream. I can't even remember. I can't even remember what we talked about in yesterday's video. If we talked about this range for XRP, I haven't had a day off since 2 weeks ago. So, as a reminder, I will be off this Friday, Friday through Monday. I will be on a small vacation for those particular days, July 28th through July 31st. But either way, what we're now going to be watching for is now that we're in the support zone, will the buyers step in? I this morning did step in as a buyer. My little buy here will get taken away from me should we go set a low below the low set over there on Friday, July 14th. Otherwise, still hope for this being a large accumulation range before moving its way back up. But should we take out the low right in here, that'll add the whole crashing structure happening, which crashing structures are typically like this, back up, and then we go back down. So we'll keep an eye on that for the next couple of days as we head throughout the week. The thing that really caught my attention, though, is just like we talked about. If you go watch that video from July 11th, if you haven't, a lot of people have seen that. That has, how many views does it have? Almost 40,000. It's the bull run setup on the altcoin market, and the thumbnail says "Ultimate Bull Run Setup." And we actually talked all about this right in here and all about the capitulation phase of spring and then this final little accumulation that we're kind of sitting here in this last point. There's one more. What do we get? To get the pop-up, we end up getting summary judgment, pulls back down. Here we go. Now it's time to see if we're going to have our bigger pop come right out of here right now. So this week in particular, I think we'll probably get a pretty good clue. Now that XRP's range is getting more matured, now that we're seeing this on the altcoin market, these are getting more matured, that this week probably will be the week on where we're going to find out is there momentum swinging in this market right now, or is it just in a complete stalemate? But I would think that this week we're actually going to end up kind of getting that answer. All right. As for Bitcoin sitting at 29.2, the stock market has now opened. Oh, let's get through this stuff real quick. Social media. You could follow me over here on x.com. My handle is at BCBacker, Twitter, x.com, whatever we're going to call it. I don't even know if this is legit, if this is forever, or if this is Elon trolling us for a moment or not. But at BCBacker, this is the only social media that I do use. And so if you're talking to people on Instagram, or if you have other accounts that are representing themselves as a blockchain backer, they're saying, sending me a DM, all that stuff. I'm not out actively DMing people. This is my only social media over here on Twitter, aka x.com, which is at BCBacker. All other accounts are impersonators scamming you. Last week, the merch store did also launch in here. I'll post that in the chat. Highly requested by you guys. There you go. It's all out there. Lots of XRP stuff, lots of blockchain backer stuff. That is currently live. As you guys know, I do write a newsletter, blockchainbacker.substack.com, and of course, bcbacker.com, of course, with over 40 videos, 11 hours of content. All right, stock market is open. So here we go. Last week, let's dive into this because I brought this up on Twitter. I brought this up in videos. I brought this up yesterday as we get ready to start the new week. This exact image was posted over there on Twitter last Friday as we had the closing of our week. Fortunately, look at the start of today. We're up 100 points for the Dow. We're up 20 points for the S&P. We are up 65 points for the NASDAQ. So we're up about a quarter to a half of a percent in each of these indexes right now. Our winners this morning so far are Google, Apple, and Amazon. Losers so far are Tesla, Netflix, and Coinbase. Now, when we closed out last week, the weekly candles, they did all close above the last retracement levels. Every single one of them for the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. The things about them is they closed by just a hair. So, did we get through them, or did we just get to them when we're that close? So the S&P only closed 1 point above, right? When we're talking 4,530 points for the S&P, and we closed 1 point above, we're talking only 0.02%. The NASDAQ closed 14 points. We're looking at the NASDAQ is 15,480 right now, right? We're talking it was 14 points above it. And then the Dow was 39. So this week, of course, waiting to see what this opening is going to be like. When pre-market opened last night, I could see the indexes were red in pre-market. I was like, oh boy, come on, man, give us some love here to start this week. But as we can see now that the market is open, we see that the indexes are opening green. The most notable index last week was the Dow. After spending 8 months stuck underneath the 702 retracement, last week we did break through the 702 and then closed a hairline above the 786. And then fortunately this morning, as we can see, we are at least continuing a little bit of a push up. None of these prices are higher as we open from what they were at some point throughout last week. So hoping to see these continue. The thing that we'll be keeping an eye on this week, of course, is on Wednesday when we have the FOMC meeting. These weeks typically are filled with volatility. So this is going to be the week where we're going to have an interest rate hike, or we're not going to have an interest rate hike. The market is pricing in the probability of 99.8% chance that we will see a 25 basis point rate hike or a 0.25% rise to the federal funds rate. I cannot recall a time where we've seen the market be this on the same page. Like even being like 90% here, or 10%, or 90% 6 and 4, or 92 and 4 and 4, to be so heavily convinced of one particular outcome. It has practically priced it in as a guarantee that the Fed will do a 25 basis point rate hike. As I talked about in yesterday's video, as you've heard me talk about on this channel for a long time, all the people saying don't fight the Fed. The reality is, if you look at when interest rate hikes are happening, when interest rate pauses are happening, and when interest rate cuts are happening, the narrative for don't fight the Fed was always wait until there's interest rate cuts, then buy the market. But that's totally not the case. As long as we're rising with the federal funds rate or we're pausing, markets have actually responded relatively well to it. It's actually the beginning of cuts that are the terrifying thing. And I actually went through the last three that we've had for the last 23 years. And you'll see that usually we actually get that first cut of 25 basis points or so. And that actually isn't the triggering event of it like completely crumbling on itself just yet. It's usually within a couple of months after that. So really, it's the thing to be watching for is any type of cuts. Small raises, pauses, those things have all been positive for the market. It's really just the cuts. So if we're going to have a 25 basis point rate hike, then we're going to have a 25 basis point rate hike. That 'tis life. So let's see. Markets now continuing to go. Looks like we're still in that same range, about 0.25% for the Dow, 0.38% for the NASDAQ, and 0.42% for the S&P. Of course, all these things are what we want to see. We want to see these things keep moving up. That's optimism for crypto on a bigger time frame and a bigger scale for liquidity to just flood into our market. Looking over here at the Bitcoin dominance, right? We've talked about this. For those who were not here in 2018, Bitcoin was treated as the safety trade. We did not have a stablecoin market at the time. You did have Tether. It was a $1 billion market cap. It represented less than 1% of the market. Now, with just USDT, Tether, and USDC, both of those combined represent about 10% of our entire market as our safety trade, along with Ethereum, which still is maintaining about 20% dominance. And back in 2018, Ethereum's dominance actually fell from like 26% all the way down to like 7%. It traded just like an altcoin back in 2018. However, in 2021 through 2023, it has held up very strong, just like Bitcoin did in 2018. So it's kind of a bigger safety trade that has taken place here in this market with the near equivalent amount of time, actually even longer amount of time here than we did for Bitcoin's dominance back in 2018 and 19 for its safety trade. So still all paused out here. We could see that even when we fell off these peaks, you know, we've got, I showed this last week, totally lost all of its strength in here when it comes to the safety trade happening. So I'm not really convinced of the move that we're having this morning. I still think the broader trend is bullish, but of course the first thing that happens is panic. I saw a couple of people come into the chat and before the live stream started, the very first thing is, please tell me we're bullish. You know, it's the emotional crowd always runs wild in these moments, and it's funny when like. When I have YouTube, because, you know, I stick to my thesis of Bitcoin going into a retrace, and depending on how the herd is feeling at the time, they'll sometimes either like, please, dear God, tell us we're going to get to retrace, please, BCB. And then there'll become points where they'll start making a mockery of me and say, yeah, you think we're only retracing? We're going to all-time highs, don't you know? The mockery of saying we're going to all-time highs has definitely calmed down now. Now it's more of like, oh, are we going to go into retrace? So emotions are certainly swinging right in here. My thoughts are this is probably just the final kind of long squeeze happening in here, and hopefully by the end of the week things do turn back up. So let's take a look over at gold. So gold holding steady, still at the same price as it was last week. Again, gold is the signal of fear and terror. Any type of all-time high bull run for gold would be a huge signal of gloom and doom for the stock market. And if that's any type of indicator for us too, that would be gloom and doom for the crypto market as well. The thing that we're going to be watching, of course, this week as well is not just the Dow Jones, but at the end of last week, the DXY caught some strength, as we always expected, that we'd eventually break supports. Where was the level? It was always that 99 to 100 level to be that area to watch out for. It has now bounced from that level back at the supports. We want to see this thing turn itself around after a back test and head back on down. So this is going to be a big watch throughout this week. Probably all the action probably will take place on Wednesday when we have the FOMC meeting. So we always live stream those. And so, on Wednesday, if you want to kind of like plan your day, right? It's going to be video, it's going to be typical markets in the morning, but then at about 2 p.m. Eastern time, that's where we start the live stream. That's where we'll get the minutes released from the Fed to let us know what's going on. We'll have the Dow Jones pulled up on the screen. We'll have Bitcoin pulled up on the screen. And the last couple of times, it hasn't been that crazy, but we've definitely had times where it's been really wild price action while we've watched it. So we'll cheer to see if we can get some significant price action to happen during that the market, uses that as a catalyst to let go of some of its fear. But that's always a fun time to do those. And we've got a lot of viewers in here this morning. We've got 2,800 typically during those Fed live streams. We'll have 3,500 to 4,000 people in there as we're just sitting there watching and hanging out in the chat. So that's the big catalyst being watched for this week. And that, of course, is arriving while we have ourselves here at these retracement levels. But it looks like the market, even now that we're opening still, 15 minutes into opening, we're doing even a little bit better now that the day is starting to get going. The Dow is now up 111 points. The NASDAQ is up 63 and the S&P is up nearly 20. So we're doing pretty good here. And more of the market is starting to turn green. And then looking over at crypto, Bitcoin's little plunge happening this morning. I think I've already shown this morning. Right, this is what we've been talking about in here. Still unable to get through. Now, if we're looking for any type of supports to show up in here, we can look back to our previous ABC corrections that we've had. In our ABC corrections, this has been the support level in each circumstance in here on a pullback. The thing is, boy, we sure got a whole lot higher on this one. Typically, we don't even exceed B leg before we end up pulling back to these. So here we go, 30 days of waiting. Boom. This really, just seeing us doing this, it just really kind of reiterates to me that I'm still going to lean on the retrace theory for Bitcoin rather than the all-time high optimism that's out there in the market. I'm still going to lean on best case scenario is being retrace. You would have expected if this thing was raging bull, right? Raging bull. To have gotten some raging continuation to happen in here for it to really pause out. I think we're going to see these altcoins take off way before people expect. People have been expecting that we won't get anything until Bitcoin gets to a new all-time high. I think it's going to show up early. It's going to trick a lot of people. And I think we're right on the verge of it for a lot of these. As for XRP, I know a lot of people tune in for XRP. It's the logo on the hat of my character, the logo of my channel. And it's my largest holding that I do have. Like I mentioned earlier, we have reached into the interesting price level. We've gotten out of the dumb money zone. We've now gotten into the support level zone. I took a stab at XRP this morning. I do have funds that have been set aside to grab a pullback back to the Wyckoff accumulation breakout level. Those funds have been now allocated in here into this with a stop. Now, this only represents 1% of my XRP. Everything, 99% of it is totally just holding on for dear life. But the reality is I'm used to paying 25, 30, 40 cents for my XRPs. We're looking at over 60 here if I'm buying it. I always want to feel that I'm getting a good deal. It's kind of how I work. So with this being a negative 29% range to the downside, a plus 29% range to the upside, how was I able to, I tried to figure out how am I going to be able to enter this in here and risk manage that last entry if I'm going to buy at these types of high prices. So I got in at 68.8 cents. Should we go take out the low, I will go ahead and cut that and take that 3.5% loss on there. The thing to kind of keep an eye on is if we do dip down in here and then pop our way up, while that of course would trigger my stop and then make me look like a clown. The reality is that's just how this particular trade is being taken. Because if this is a crash, a retrace, a reaccumulation into bullishness, we should just go ahead and hold that floor and not take out the floor. If we do take out the floor, it really opens up the door for what I think many people who watch this channel all the time, taking bcbacker.com. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then what comes next? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Starts to get a little bit dicey there afterwards, and likely heading back down to touch the peak of our past range, which we still have yet to back test in here after completely just soaring out. So I made an entry this morning. It's got to stop below the recent low that was set there on July 14th. And now we just wait to see if we're going to be able to work our way back up. One thing's for certain in here, when we're looking at it on the smaller time frame, when we're comparing this to 2017, in 2017, but we had something very similar where we broke out, right? We broke out, we ranged in here, but we also ranged on top of the support. And when it just rammed its way back up, just merely a week later, all those same characteristics were emerging in here, but all of them have been lost. So now this structure is definitely nothing like what we had in that particular phase in 2017. So we're having to kind of roll with the punches and take it from here. So what structures can we have? We can have an accumulation range happening in here where we hit a third range boundary but still maintain our supports. If we end up taking our supports out and still continue bouncing, it opens up the door that this is the typical crashing structure. I call it crashing structure. It may sound aggressive and scary. It's just how prices tend to move down. We see that this happens all the time. Even this would be considered a crashing structure. Wave down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to wave 4 within wave 5, and then boom, there you go. That's the completed crashing structure happening in there. You could call it a downtrend structure. You can call it whatever you want. But should we go take out these lows? That would be my thought process. But as of right now, as we hold these lows, there's a potential. This is just the accumulation range. For that, I'm taking a stab at it. We'll see what happens in the coming days. Otherwise, I showed this. If you caught the video, we're getting a lot of people tuning in. We got over 3,000 now. If you caught my video last week? What day was summary judgment? I know it was a Thursday, the 13th, right? That Tuesday, I had put out a video titled "It's the Bull Run Setup on the Altcoin Market," and it said "Ultimate Bull Run Setup" on there. We were talking a lot about this range in here, that we were coming off of Wyckoff's spring for a lot of these assets. We also talked a lot about XRP, how XRP was in last point of support while the rest of the market showed spring had already come in here. In this accumulation range, which we talked about in that video, we said, hey, we'd be kind of right in here. There'd still be one more little rip to go. That is now appearing during this morning's move happening in the crypto market. So we'll keep our eyes on it, and hopefully things can turn themselves back up very quickly. And then watch out. This market's likely on its way. And so far, so good as we do start the week with the stock market. Looks like we are starting to lose a little bit of the momentum. Now that we've started, the NASDAQ has gone red, but the Dow is still holding green. The S&P is still holding green and flipping and flopping. So looks like not the surge into the start of the week. The thing we'll all be watching is the Fed meeting. And so that will be on Wednesday. That will likely be at 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we will watch all of that live together. We'll watch all the volatility together. And the thing we haven't gotten to do in like the last 3 meetings is we've not gotten to play the frog during that. We've only gotten to do that like one time where we came out of the meeting and it was a wild time. So that's what we'll be hoping for on Wednesday. Otherwise, the only thing we have green today is Doge. So Doge coming out green, of course, likely probably with Elon Musk, X.com, all that stuff. By the way, you probably noticed this. This is what the 2018 bear looked like for Doge. And not saying that, Doge is obviously following this. But one thing we talked about as we were getting like the spring capitulation phase, as time was in there, to understand how deep we were into this. For those who weren't here in 2018, 19, and 20, how we had pretty much been this deep and this long, and then imagine C19 hitting at that time. That's what happened to us. But it's nice to see this market has at least moved beyond that time period. So I almost consider, was our C19 moment, even though not as crazy, was it actually the SEC? I think it might have been the SEC back in June. And I think that's what it was. So, all right, this week, watching for the DXY, see if it finds some type of resistance here underneath this kind of supportive break that we had last week. Gold, nothing of interest happening in here. stock market can you maintain? And then are we going to see, is this a long liquidation happening in the market? And my thoughts are there's a relatively decent chance that it actually is. So we'll watch that throughout the week, and then I'll get a video out later today. Otherwise, Bitcoin, all eyes on, if we do continue lower, that 28.5, which we're not too far away. We're only about $600 away from entering that price level. That's the same price level that we've had to hit each of these times. Last time we had ABC corrections. We'll see what happens when we get there, should we do so. Otherwise, not as strong as of a Bitcoin as people would hope. So I'm still sticking with my retrace idea that Bitcoin is, and I think the altcoins are going to take it away. And then I think that we've actually already reached peak safety trade. And that's what Bitcoin dominance is. Bitcoin dominance is safety. I think we've already reached peak safety. And I think the market's going to start YOLOing before we know it. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump on into the chat, and we'll get it going, and I'll get back to getting on my video. Trying to think announcements for this week. What is there? Wednesday, prepare. So we're likely going to have volatility all week due to Fed. What is significant about this one, right? So what's significant about this one, not that it matters, just to understand their wording. In 2022, they stated that their target was to raise by 75 basis points in 2023. They went ahead and did that. They did 3 separate 25 basis points rate hikes, and then they paused at the last meeting. So if they do actually raise on Wednesday, it will be more than what their original guidance was back at the end of 2022. So we'll see. All right, John, remember 26 months. BCB, would you mind updating your original course with updated targets, those tokens based on their inflation? Since a new course was released, I still continue to update that. So there's been no reason to update any of those because I haven't been selling this market. So once those happen, then I'll be making adjustments in there. But I've still been doing monthly updates in there as I have for the last year and a half, even with enrollment being closed. But yeah, any updates that I deem necessary, definitely go in there, even though it's still closed. Pat, gifted 5. Thank you, Pat. Oscar gifted 1. Thank you very much. Blockchain Lurker gifted 5. Man, guys, thank you very much right out the gates. Kruger, been watching you from November of 2020, and you were a true miracle on YouTube. What are your thoughts on DOT now that we have a new dev report data? I'll have to take a look at. These past couple of weeks have been ridiculously busy for me. I started creating all the dev data and then had to take a break from it. Of course, we had the summary judgment stuff, and I think it came out just like a week before summary judgment. I started creating an Excel file. Do I still have? I might even have it open. What is DOT? A to Z. Yeah, so that's right. So Polkadot, not the best. So here's with Polkadot. Polkadot's got one of the highest amount of devs on it, right? Ethereum is number 1 at 1,900. Polkadot's at 645. But Polkadot's negative 18% year over year. Not good, right? How about change from December of 2022 to now, down 16%. How about change since April, down 4%? The thing about it, let's see from April. The hard thing about analyzing the down 4% from April is, right, like if we look at the data and how it's historically been, we really have to go over year. But we can try to like catch those trends early. And by looking at things like, well, what happened in the last 3 months or what happened in the last 6 months? Is that going to give us a clue into what the 1 year is going to be? I'm not sure. Because we can see these things bounce around. One thing that we saw in the last developer report was how up Cardano still was during all of this. And then in this developer report, how it goes down, right? So is there volatility every 3 months throughout the market? Possibly. But I would say that the not so great thing is that if you look at the year over year, you see it down It's 18%. Second largest, but down 18%. So not good. Have we seen that before? Yes, right? EOS. People don't seem to know this, that EOS was the third largest. You had Bitcoin, Ethereum, and EOS. And EOS had like the most transactions, tons of transaction volume. But then we watched developers fade. And the developers fading gave a clue into the likelihood of, whether it's likelihood, we watched price reactions during the 2021 bull run, and who performed poorly. And the consistent theme amongst the negative ones was that developer declining data, regardless of how big they were. And the great example of that is EOS, because of how huge it was. EOS, for those who are in crypto now, EOS was your BNB or your Cardano or your Solana or your Dogecoin or your Polygon or your Polkadot. It was, your big boy up there near the top, the one that actually was perceived as having a chance at stabbing at Ethereum. But what was the clue in there? Declining developer data. So down 18% year over year. Usually not a good sign. Thank you very much, Kruger. Oscar, click the like for best support of the channel. Thank you, Oscar. Jerome. Jerome T says, I'm quite concerned about the emotional reactions and behaviors of many people already at this stage in the market. Some might not be here that long, but it makes me wonder if they can handle the times ahead. Right. Most can't. You've got to have, it's almost like you kind of have to have the experience and like find this inner going through. You have to like fight it and go through it. At least that was my experience. And the way I was able to overcome the emotional insanity of the market was the thing I tried to share in yesterday's video, keeping an emotional log and tracking it, and then being able to go back and see what happened. That's why I think that was a good opportunity to share what I saw in the market with my own emotional log. When we were in this type of range last time, coming off of all of this, if you guys caught yesterday's video, which I think a lot of you did, when we were in here last time, there was that emotion still within me and in my emotional log. Do I still have it open? There it is. There we go. So I can go through it and look in here and see how I just didn't trust anything yet. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. I'll read you guys this one really quick. Here we go. This breakout right here. This is a big one, right? This is in yesterday's video, I read through these right in here, what was going on in here, and you could see my lack of trust. But what about this breakout right here, right? You think to yourself now, because we can look back at everything with hindsight. And that's the worst thing about the worst people, when they look back on things with hindsight and say, isn't it obvious? We'll see. Because what are they going to say the same thing about here? If price moves up one more time, they're going to go back and say, it was so obvious. No, it's not. You're living in it right now. You're getting to see how it's not obvious on how many people are emotional baskets of insanity during times like this. And to see what it was like right here, right? You think to yourself, oh, it's the obvious reversal. Here, I actually documented in here. Let me preface this by saying, here, I'm reading this. Let me preface this by saying, because you can see the date here, right? April 2nd. Let me preface this by saying none of this is an April Fool's Day joke. So everything is breaking out. All long-term resistances are being broken. Bitcoin is breaking above $41,000 as I'm writing this. However, I have no positive emotions about this. This has happened over and over and over again, where it just teases that the bottom is in, gives a great bounce, then the bottom falls out of the market. I have absolutely no positive emotions or FOMO emotions right now. Well, I don't have any FOMO, mainly because I'm fully entered into the market. But I'm not sitting here jumping up and down saying I'm going to be rich. there is still a long ways to go. And I have no clue if this is the bottom yet. Time will tell. But we are seeing some positive developments over the last few months. Let's see if it can keep it up and get some follow through. I would expect one more completely terrifying fall back down to support just to confirm there are buyers there, but we'll see. So you can just see in this phase, I wasn't even excited this day. You would think that I would have like euphoria and excitement, but having already been through so many washing machines, that wasn't there yet. And then you can see over here on April 11th, when I'm writing here, I'm like, okay, so I didn't type anything in here for the last 10 days. However, Bitcoin had a big breakout and the rest of the market went up with it. However, I do not feel anything emotionally about it. So I didn't type anything in here. Bitcoin reached up to 5,400, pretty big jump. It's still at 5,050 as I'm typing this. However, I'm skeptical of it. I do not feel any FOMO. I do not feel any excitement. I have more concern than excitement, as if we're preparing for a complete tumble. I don't know, but I might as well update this. Bitcoin popped up on April 2nd to $5,000 and has held that level for over a week. We'll see what comes next. Then next update is May 2nd. I read this one. I'm talking about Bitfinex drama. I'm talking about Tether drama. And I'm saying I haven't bought anything new in the last month. I'm looking to make more entries. If we get a fall, I would buy Bitcoin again. If it goes back to the 3,100 to 3,500 range, and I'd buy some altcoins, but we'll see if that ever happens. So you could just read it in here. There's no trust. There's no trust and no excitement in the market as we're in this range, as we're in this zone. And I see that still throughout the market currently right now. But it was once we got above here. It was once we escaped above this level, all of that disappears. I go through this emotional log and then there's no more of it whatsoever. But all of it still resided in here. It was all throughout here, all throughout here, all throughout here. It's all negative. It's all pessimistic. It's all self-degrading, talking down to myself, being really negative about me, and talking bad about myself in there. And then it is literally this moment where all of it changes. All of it becomes, I was right. All of it becomes, we're going up. It's exciting. I can't believe it. This is amazing. And that's the moment. And so we haven't escaped that area yet of where everybody is still an emotional handbasket. I don't know what it is, an emotional nut job. We're still in it. So we've got to get out. There's one more step higher to go for the market to be convinced of optimism. And we just haven't gotten there yet. So yeah. Well, I agree, Jerome. But that's just normal. That is normal. And that's why I try to teach these things, to be aware of them. And the chaos that unfolds is that most can't do it. Most people can't handle it at all, especially the ones who come roaring in after 100% rise and then buy the market. They're not here to sit through what a lot of you guys went through, where you sit through a year in a range and then it breaks out up 100%. They're not here for that. They're here for the lottery ticket and to win the lottery right away. So it's a different type of person that comes in after a price has already risen high. Jaxer4 says, what does a sick chart get? Wyckoff accumulation. Okay. I'm surprised we don't get a lot of those. We don't get a lot of jokes. Thank you, Jaxer. My wife would appreciate that. Thomas Campbell says, BCB, there's no men's tanks to show off my XRP guns. Whoop. Make a note of it. Let's write her down. All right. I got you, Thomas. Oscar, my man, says BCB is always has the community's back. Let's have his back with a simple like. That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Oscar. We're at 914. That's pretty good. Thank you, guys. Oscar, sweet. I haven't looked at sweet in a couple weeks. So it's a new coin, right? I don't want to sit here. And this is a dingus one. We'll see if it ends up paying off. Mind you, it's not it's like less than 1% of my portfolio. So don't take a gamble on something that you're not willing to know it's literally a gamble. Dang. Okay, hold on. Nick, thank you very much. Philip Mann, thank you very much. Gifted one. Blockchain back membership. And then not Oscar Hernandez comes out swinging. Not Oscar, dude. Good morning, BCB. My wife has never loved you like I love you until yesterday when she asked me about the T Swift concert in September. This super chat is from her. Much love, amigo. What? First of all, very generous. Not Oscar Hernandez. Thank you very much. And are you going? Are you going, man? That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you, not Oscar Hernandez's wife. I'm curious what your wife thinks that your name is not Oscar Hernandez. Prasad, Ledger Hack update. I messed up BCB. I saved my seed on LastPass, which was hacked. Started scraping some XRP again. Wish me luck, man. Oh, brother. So you saved your seed phrase on a third party. I'm not sure. I am not familiar with what LastPass is. Yeah, but there you go. If you store your seed phrase with third parties, if you've already done that stuff, you're kind of putting yourself at some risk. Sorry to hear that, brother. Brandon D, thank you very much. Riptide says, to be honest, not even scared this time. Thank you, bro. Justin Wiles, in the newsletter, you have an impressive fractal for Ethereum. If Bitcoin only goes into a retrace, do you expect ETH to follow that fractal into a huge all-time high? We'll see. We'll see how I would have to see how Ethereum is reacting in that moment, right? We all know Ethereum and Bitcoin both went on to 4.236 extensions, right, on their market caps, both of them. So we'll see how Ethereum is reacting in the middle of it. If Ethereum's like cranking higher and already touching like all-time highs or something, opens up the door for it. But if Bitcoin's at a retracement and Ethereum's at a retracement and like XRP's in the middle of like catching up to the Ethereum market cap all at the same time, there's like a confluence of things happening there to say likely not, right? But Ethereum certainly has been incredibly similar to its last super cycle, and we know that Bitcoin has followed 3 super cycles nearly identically. So it's definitely on my radar, and that's why it's my third largest holding. And if we do end up getting that, where I don't want to lose this one, we'll lose Doge. If we do end up getting it to where we pull back to the 200-week moving average on XRP versus Bitcoin, I am going to be deploying some of my Bitcoin into XRP on that moving average. That will shift mine. So like currently my portfolio is weighted with XRP as number 1, Bitcoin is number 2, and Ethereum is number 3. That move down in here will shift my rotations. It will be shifting it to where XRP is still number 1, but then Bitcoin and Ethereum will be swapping each other. Ethereum will be shifting into number 2. Thank you, Justin. Brandon D. Hey, BCB. I forgot to write something on my last chat. Is it worth analysis on a time frame of less than 4 hours? I feel like anytime I do, I make myself crazy. Yeah. Dude, I don't even like doing 4-hour stuff. I don't even like being in these time frames right in here. When you're new, I've actually found it comes down to a lot of emotional management, and that, you know, how some people want the rewards to happen quickly, right? And so we're talking about a large range in here, and we're talking about this now lasting about a week and a half, right? A large 10 days. For a lot of us, hey man, we've been able to handle a year and 2 months okay. A lot of people who pour in after a massive rise, they buy after the rise because they feel they will get left behind. And so that the time was of the essence must be made in a millisecond. The decision has to be made in a millisecond because price a millisecond later is going to keep rising really high. So typically when we have people who are looking at really small time frames, it's impatience, it's wanting to get some type of result and do something quickly, because when we're moving on this type of price scale, if you're trying to move, 12% over the course of a few days, somebody may say, well, I'm just going to hop into the 5-minute time frame and I'm going to trade each one of these. Right? And but if I do this, I can, over the course of the next hour, I can try to make 1.5%. I think, and if people's emotions get swung on this big of a scale, when you get on those tiny time frames, they swing even faster. And man, I learned, I used to do that stuff in 2017. It's been that long. I learned all my lessons in 2017 when it came to looking at short-term time frames, to not drive yourself literally insane. Literally insane. Crypto is the most volatile asset in the world. You can either be here to deal with the insanity of short-term time frames and catch 3 and 4% bounces back and forth. There's a lot of people who find that alluring, to go after 3 and 4% up and down, right? Because you can't really get that in the stock market. So if you wanted to come in and play for a day, right, you've got the chances to make those types of percentages. But the reality is, day traders all know they don't have a 100% hit rate, right? No day traders do. They have risk management, right? And they'll know, I hit about 50% of the time I'm going to get it right. But when I get it right, I make 2 times more than I lose when I lose. So my net, after a series of the law of large numbers, ends up being positive. But most people don't come in with that capability to be that emotionless in it, to say, oops, I lost that one, it didn't matter, whatever. That's what my normal statistical average is. I can look here on this spreadsheet and see the last 438 trades that I've made. I've gotten 56% of those trades correct, but I've also made 2 times more than I've lost on each one of those trades. That's not how people come into here thinking of it. They come in here thinking of it, I have to have a 100% hit rate, and taking any losses is brutally painful. And that's just not the way trading works. So I have learned a long time ago not to spend my time looking at charts on this small of a time frame, but to look at them on the bigger time frames. So if you want to do yourself a favor, I would stop making yourself crazy. But thank you, Brandon. Forgot to add a message last time. Can you comment on the GameStop chart? Even if you can't, thanks for everything you do. Your course looks awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll look at GameStop. So this was a crazy one for me, because this was one that I actually had right before the short squeeze ever came. But I did also lump it in, thinking that we'd see the same thing with GE and Ford. So prior to this happening in here, I'd gone on a channel called To the Lifeboats, which was with Green Eggs and Sam. He doesn't have that channel anymore on YouTube. But that, things that would be to watch for would be massive surges happening in things like GameStop, Ford, and GE. And the rise that we've seen in GameStop was the extent of that. GameStop has been a failing company, just in general. If you've been inside of a GameStop, it's like the worst experience you could possibly have. It's horrible. And it's been like that for quite some time. And the constant upselling, the customer harassment of just power up rewards, Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy a protection plan? And then if you say no, the employees are trained to have to be really aggressive with you. And it's been that way for a long time. It's much easier to just buy the digital product at this point on your console rather than have to deal with that. This company was practically bankrupt right here. They had made announcements that they were going to be closing stores, and they were closing a lot of them. They even started closing some of them around me. And then things just went bonkers. But I knew there was something about it to say it's going to squeeze the heck out of it. So even though they were bankrupt, I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, hey, check this out. I bought a bunch of GameStop, and look at it. They're going to file for bankruptcy. That was one of those days my wife looked at me and said, what the heck? What are we doing, man? She doesn't ever question me anymore on any of it. But back then she did. And then, it shot right back to supports. It's kind of things we're seeing a lot throughout the cryptocurrency market is how we saw these shoots back to these supports here, like Bitcoin Cash recently, and even Bitcoin, right? Getting back in here and then stalling, and then it goes for a full squeeze. But the reality is GameStop will never see what it saw already. What you saw happen, the rallying of people around it, that'll never happen again for GameStop. It was a one-time thing. The business is still failing. And you look at the distance at which GameStop traveled, it went full extension, right? And that's back twisting on top of, the all-time high, but it's even dipped below that before in the initial crash that it took place on here. You would have to think if there's anything higher to go for GameStop, then it has to go for a whole nother bull. And do you genuinely believe that there's a whole nother short squeeze all set up on it that's going to cause another 10,000% rise on GameStop? Highly unlikely. I would think it's pretty likely that the euphoria is done on this thing. And when it comes to stocks, they're their own little game. It's not like crypto's insanity. It's I just don't imagine GameStop still being around in 5 years. Just the company in general. They got themselves saved by this. They were on the brink of bankruptcy right here. Then retail shot the price up. Then they got to sell a bunch of their stock at the high prices, and it bought them some time. But the company's still... No, I guarantee it. There's nobody in here. If these 2,877 people in the chat, there's nobody who goes into GameStop and thinks it's like a glorious experience when you buy something. It is beratement and harassment to sign up for every protection plan and to buy more stuff and to keep spending your money. So I don't even feel comfortable talking about something for supports on something that I personally don't believe in at all. At all. And I know there's this was a huge movement. It's not friendly to say that, but that's only because of what it represents. It represents down with the hedge funds. I understand that. But 10,000% rise, full extension, everything has happened for this thing. It's never going to have that same excitement again. And it's a totally failing company, failing business model. That was almost bankrupt. That saved it some time, but I don't believe their business model has changed in any way to save them. So to each their own. But thank you, Nick. Ish, shouldn't we be using market cap charts instead of price charts when doing TA due to tokenomics, especially when looking at fibs from a macro perspective? I bring that up a lot, Ish. It's been probably beaten like a dead horse on this channel to infinity and beyond. When we're looking at stuff on shorter term time frames like this, though, there's not enough happening in a matter of 10 days to impact this, unless if it had a really high inflation rate, like something like Filecoin. HBAR's inflation rates is 50%. So when we do go a couple of weeks, that does impact it by a couple of percent. But when we're looking at stuff like this, it, with something that has 6% inflation, not a big deal on these smaller time frames. But that's why with XRP, we bring it up all the time on the inflation, and we bring it up on the market cap for sure. Cesar Mirando or Cesar, yo BCB, when XRP moons, will you be selling all or only some of it? Also, is it a good idea to buy more still? I'm not going to advise you to buy any. I don't ever tell you guys when to buy or sell. I'll tell you when I'm doing something. I just took a stab right here with a stop right here on 1%. I still have my whole long-term holding bag that I've had. Nothing changes with that, but I have funds that I've wanted to add in at 58 cents. I've taken those funds and entered them here as we are at the bottom of a range boundary. If we take out the bottom of the range boundary, those funds will be removed. That'll take a 3.5% loss. And then those funds will either, if this thing turns around and heads up, well, that 1% of my money will not get entered. Otherwise, then it is going to be saved for down here below 58. But as for entering right now, I'm not going to tell you to do that. As for when I'm selling, I've kind of talked about it a lot of times. Everybody is their own thing. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Everybody will criticize you and tell you yours is wrong. You need to tell everybody else to bug off. It's none of their, it doesn't matter what they say. It's what you want, right? What can you live with? We talk about emotions and emotional management. A lot of it has to do with that. How are you emotionally going to handle any of this, right? If price goes up, even if price goes up 20% more, do you need to sell 10% just to feel okay, right? To be like, hey, you know what? Most of my bag's kind of like at a free ride at this point. I've got my initial investment out. Everything's a free ride. That might be what people have to do, right? Or if it's going to go up to $5 and you sell 50% of your bag and then let the rest of it ride. Go 7 or 8 or 9 or $10, sell 65%, right? That's my strategy, 65%. That's because of what I'm emotionally capable of handling, to where if price continues soaring to what a lot of the clickbait tells us is $1,000, which never going to happen. But if it goes to like, 25 or $30 or something, I still have 35% of my bag, and that's going to be a substantial amount of money. But if it also crashes and crumbles into the ground from $8, $9, $10, $11, well, you know what? I got 65% out. And so it's not, it's a number for me personally, because I've done this several times, to know that's where my emotional stability can be at 65%. If I sell it, I don't get FOMO if the price keeps going higher. And then I also don't get mad if the price falls. So either way, I'm just content at that. And that's the percentage that works for me. I don't sit there and say, dang, I should have done more, or dang, I should have done less. That's just my number, and it's worked for me. So each person figures out their own. But no, it won't be all. I'm sure some sized bag would always be there regardless of how high price got. Whether that bag is only 5% of the original amount at some point, maybe, I don't know. But no, probably no, not the whole thing. XRP over Bitcoin is testing the breakout of daily trend line from 11/23/20 to now. Where are we going? We're going here. Okay, there you go. There's a trend. Let's just throw this thing on here. There you go. I'm not a big trend line guy, but maybe we'll get some confluence of other things happening with the trend. Like an example of confluence of trend would be this right here. While I would never, for me personally, use trends alone, it's a precise nail of trend, but was also the 200-day moving average at the exact same time. So pretty crazy, right? So, I mean, if there's some other like confluence that's happening at that time, okay, I'll entertain it. But just the trend line by itself, it's not something I pay attention to. Hey, BCB, thoughts on the DXY chart? Kind regards from the Netherlands. P.S. Currently preparing to make a pulled pork on the Komodo. Any advice, Komodo, for any advice for me? Pulled pork. Okay, so that's like one of those eggs. So I don't have an egg. But if you're just smoking it, right? Let's see. It's been a while since I've done a pork butt. But man, dude, just the way that never goes wrong, man. Just smoke it for like 3 hours at 225 and wrap that sucker in foil. You can then just foil it and then just raise it to temperature. I can't remember what you got to get a pulled pork to. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember because it's been about 2 years since I've done one. But then, let it rest for an hour and you're good to go. I can't remember. Ew, no foil. Wrap it in butcher paper. Yeah, you can wrap it in butcher paper too. Yeah, see, the problem with the foil, right, is you're going to end up getting all that juice in there and it's going to kind of impact the bottom side of it. Hazard, could you look at EOS? We get this maybe every week. It's following what the rest of the market is. If it gets some big pop up, might be a chance to escape. The thing has been abandoned, and that's what we've been talking about for a year now. So, I don't know if there's going to... The thing, too, about the developer report that came out recently on EOS, and we even talked about EOS earlier in this stream, EOS is seeing a return of developers, but I don't know. Oscar, for cooking tips, tune into the lives. Well done steaks. No well done steaks. XRP JT. So, Backer, you are in the camp that XRP will never hit 4 digits. For sure. Absolutely. Never hit 4 digits. Brandon Hammond. This obviously is not crypto related, but I have to address it. He says Nintendo 64 games ranked. Smash Bros is greater than GoldenEye, which is greater than Mario Kart, which is greater than Tony Hawk. I probably disagree. I had my brother-in-law over and my nephew, and all of us as a family, we all got in front of the TV, and we still have old school Nintendo 64s, and we had Mario Kart, and dude, it was a good time. We Mario Karted it up with all 4 controllers, all plugged in. We're sitting on bean bags. It was fun. Cash Me Outside says we need a BCB cookbook. Hit the likes. PDW shirt. Padron Visual says, any thoughts on Proppy and Q&T? So I don't know what Proppy is, so I'm not gonna pull it up because I haven't looked at it. Q&T, it's one of those ones. Do we still have it on here? I might. I don't own any QNT. The thing that has always just made me nervous about QNT has just been how the rest of the market went down. The rest of the market pulled down here. Give me a look at things like Matic, right? It went down. The whole market has. The whole market has come back down to hit these things, but QNT hasn't. So it's just been kind of like this thing dangling out in space that has made me nervous to attempt to be in it as I see that. And it's been like that for months for me, waiting on will it come down? Because I see all the excitement on Twitter. I see all the people pumped about it and stuff like that. But just as a chart guy, the thing has made me nervous as the rest of the market has gone on to go whack those lower prices. Really, everything has. The only thing that didn't is QNT. Maybe that's additional strength underneath it, but it just leaves me concerned and worried. You forgot my DXY question. What was your DXY question? Event S. Any thoughts on the DXY charts? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we bring up the DXY all the time. I don't know what else to really say about DXY. We waited all year to get down to the 99 to 100. We've gotten down in there. We've bounced out. Looks like we're still getting a little bit of a bounce today. Stock market's still holding up pretty well. Dow's up 157 points this morning. So Dow's still continuing to hold up well this morning. DXY, I still think we're going to revisit these lows. Now, whether we're going to go that low, I don't know. I still think we're going to revisit these lows again. But there is still the real serious situation of this being the low. And whether or not we do visit it again. The thing we talked about all year long was that we would break, that we would eventually break it, and that the area to watch would be 99 to 100. So we've gotten down there. Now it's just, do we come down here again? Do we break it? This is where the market's now going to tell us what. But the whole structure, when we all counted this out, we've been counting it all year long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Rolls back up to wave 4 within wave 5, waiting for it, kerplunk. Typically, after we have our kerplunk, we will come back down and hit again. And actually, we still even will set another new low afterwards. Even in the most reversal-ish of situations like this, that's usually what you usually are still going to get one of these things to happen in here, even if it's like super mega bull for the US dollar currency index. And so whether or not that is the scenario, we'll find out. But we can obviously see there was support in that 99 to 100. It broke down as expected, got to the 99 to 100 and held, because this usually is going to act as a supportive level over here. So still waiting on it. And I bet that we will see reactions to the market on Wednesday. We'll see what happens Wednesday. That's when the FOMC meeting is. Riptide, BCB, do you put butter on your steak? No, but it's a really good idea, right? Like when you go to like a So we actually don't like to eat steaks at restaurants, because I'm tooting my own horn here, but me and my wife had this big conversation about it. We don't actually like to go out to eat a whole lot because the food we make at home is better than most restaurants. We also have small kids. Anybody with small kids, you're going to go out to a restaurant, you're going to drop $100 on eating dinner with some small kids, and your kids are going to act like little jerks the whole time, right? So like, is it really worth it to go out and eat? Yeah. But like if you do go to a fancy steak restaurant, a lot of times they'll put like that garlic butter on it, right? That stuff is good. I need to do that. I don't do it. But I should probably start doing it. But no, I never do. But I'm a spoiled brat when it comes to steaks now. I only eat filet. I don't ever buy T-bones. I don't buy New York strips. It's kind of like when I went to Costa Rica, there were apparently some bananas that are like the best bananas in the world or something like that. And they were telling me how I needed to eat one of these like bananas. I'm not talking about, those little ones that I forget what they call them. What do you call little ones? What am I talking about? It's not coming to my tongue. I know what they are. Plantains. Boom. Thank you. I'm not talking about plantains. They were telling me about a different type of banana. And they said, if you eat this banana, you'll never go back to a regular banana ever again. And I'm like, well, I eat regular bananas every single day. So I'm not going to eat this banana or it's going to ruin it for me. And I'm glad I never did. So I still like my nice little 39-cent a pound bananas that I get at the grocery store. But if I had gone, and so one of the things that I did do that screwed me over is eating filet. Tenderloin is that I cannot eat a New York strip anymore. I can't eat anything except for filet because it's ridiculous. It's so good. So if you enjoy New York strips, maybe you don't want to venture into the filet world. Brandon Hammond misunderstood my question last week. A long time ago, you had a video on Bitcoin at 47K. Yeah. That's back. The bear strikes Bitcoin when I said, in December of 2021, saying we're in a bear market for Bitcoin and drew out all my bear market scenarios. I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah. So the thing is, if we would have gone down, like what I would have looked for Bitcoin would have been a quick reversal back up to, in that scenario, to like come down and then really work its way back up relatively quickly. We're taking a long time down here. So I'm not so convinced of that. I'm still thinking retracement. As for the stock market, guys, stock market is doing well with this opening. Nasdaq is a little wishy-washy, but the Dow is still continuing up, and this has always been our bigger trend indicator. Has been the Dow more so than the S&P and the Nasdaq. That's why we always use the Dow. People ask me that a lot. Why do you always use the Dow when we're comparing all these things? It's because it's always been the one that has mattered. But I think that answered your question, Brandon. That it should have, I would have thought it would have turned up a lot quicker. Eric is off today. Eric, he's the boss man. I think because I think on Monday mornings he's actually pretty busy. Like he acts like a responsible adult. All right. So we'll go ahead and, how long have we been live? An hour and 17 minutes. That is my break. That's too long. Somebody reminded me last week. I came on here to remind you, it's time to end it because I had gotten to an hour and 19 minutes. We've done a lot better of keeping these closer to that hour mark. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing wrapped up so I can get working on YouTube videos. Looking over at the stock market, Dow continues higher. So Dow has now pushed higher than last week's pricing. That is great. Bitcoin sell off this morning. We've shown Ethereum Classic, XRP down at the bottom end of the range. I took a stab, but I do have a stop on that little 1% buy that I do have right there. It will be stopped out if it sets a new low on this like daily time frame that we're in right now. Otherwise, that buy will then be saved for us getting down to 58 cents. As for things like Ethereum Classic, like we've talked about, if you check out the video, if you're looking for something to watch right now, I'd go back to the July 11th video titled "It's the Bull Run Setup" on the altcoin market, and the thumbnail says "Ultimate Bull Run Setup." That's the one I'd go check out right now if you're looking for understanding of where we're at right now and how this could be the last shot before things get exciting here in the market. Otherwise, hopefully things recover here in the next day or two. But this will highly likely be a very volatile week, as they always are when we have the Fed come out and they have something that they're going to tell us about the economy and their plans and all that stuff. Like it or love it, there's usually at least some volatility involved. Again, reminder, we will have a live stream on Wednesday to watch all of that live. It's a good time. We sit here and we poke fun at Jerome Powell. We talk about his hard swallows that he does. It's always a good time. And hopefully we get to play the frog at the end of it. So otherwise, check that out on Wednesday. As for the stock market, though, would at least look to something positive happening on the macro scale. Maybe having a red day over there in crypto. At least we can look over here to the bigger picture of things and say, hey, things are not so bad on the bigger picture. Otherwise, you guys check out the merch. Post that in there. There you go. Check out newsletter. Check out. Here you go. Here's a direct link to Teachable. There's bcbacker.com at Teachable. 40 plus videos, 11 plus hours of content, super duper deep dive into charts and into the cryptocurrency market. Available right here at your fingertips to access whenever you want. I always forget to say this too. There's downloadable PDFs in here. So you can have these and print these out and reference back to them. And there's also links to additional information in there if you want to further your education. Otherwise, oh, here we go. WW says, hey, BCB, what if the Fed pauses this week? Unicorns, fairy dust, God, simulation. Well, they paused last meeting, right? I wouldn't find, the market doesn't price it in that way. So let's just say I'm very clear. I'm just going to go with what the market says. The market says 99.8% chance the Fed's going to hike by 25 basis points. I'm going with that. I'm not going to disagree with the market. I'm just not. But if they still paused, right, it would surprise the market. It would make the market then question, is the Fed really ever going to raise again? I don't know. And I don't know if you would consider it magical unicorn fairy dust with the Fed, because the Fed does look at the stock market, right? They are making decisions by looking at the stock market likely. So I don't think it's so much magical unicorn. That's more of the puppet masters pulling the puppet strings, right? They're doing it at the right time. So I wouldn't find it to be too crazy that the Fed does stuff at the right time on the charts. So, all right. Looks like we're off to a good start on the Dow. It's up 175 points. It's something positive to look at as we have a red start here in the cryptocurrency market. Macro-wise, great start for the Dow Jones. Big week this week with the Fed, and hopefully crypto can get itself a nice little recovery. It looks like the dollar has pulled back just a little bit from that peak it was at just a few minutes ago. Otherwise, Scorpion Host Zero with a $1.99 chat says, regardless of time, the $10 range is inevitable, right? You're wanting a guarantee. There's no guarantees in anything, buddy. Let's hope, though. Let's all hope. But all right, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap this thing up over here. Check out this if you're wanting something to watch as I'm working all day to try to get a video put together. You can check out bcbacker.com. Otherwise, thank you guys always for tuning in, especially on this Monday morning. We had quite a big show up today. If you could like this live stream, please give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor, but if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.